Hulk. Red Sox fans have longed to hear it. The Boston Red Sox are world champions. Game over, series over, and the Red Sox are world champs again. And so are these fans. It hasn't happened at Fenway Park for 95 years. The Red Sox are world champions.
Boston organization has been well run for a long time now. From the top on down, here comes a 1-2 pitch. Red Sox win the World Series. 5-1 the final tonight. And the best team in baseball wins it all in 2018.
The Red Sox have won the World Championship. The Boston Red Sox beat the Los Angeles Dodgers 5-1. They win the World Series 4-1. And the Red Sox become the first team in the 21st century with 4 World Championships. Can you believe it?
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Pesky Podcast, episode 33. I am the Ritt. With me is our head writer, Mr. George Sutherland. George, how's it going, man?
Terrific. Another good game from the boys last night. You know, they're starting to pick up some steam.
Yeah, I sit there and I love this, man. Well, the Mets series is coming up. I can't wait for this. The Mets Stadium actually is one of the only stadiums in the Northeast that I have not been to yet.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, I've been to Yankee Stadium. I've been to the Philly Stadium, Baltimore, Nationals, Pittsburgh, of course, Fenway Park. So I know the Mets Stadium is on my bucket list. I know they play them there next year. So that will probably be my to-do list next year. But we've got a writer, a guy that's been a diehard fan of the Mets to help us out to cover the series coming up. So let's bring him on, Mr. Not Gaetti.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hey, not doing too bad. So tell us a little bit about how you became a Mets fan overall with everything.
Yeah, so I come from a long line of New Yorkers, and in my family we pull for the Yankees and the Mets both. So I feel a little bit like coming into enemy territory, going on a Red Sox podcast again. But no, it's great. Both teams have such different personalities, right? The Yankees have this sort of like evil empire vibe, right? A lot of people disparagingly will call them that, but you know, for a long time they were not afraid to spend. They were not afraid to make the big deals. They expected to win every single year, and for a while they did. And you know, obviously, like the record of 27 championships and all of that, there's a certain vibe. The Mets have just such a different personality and a different character, and all of the great Met teams through the years, from the first championship team in '69, coming back from just like such a bad season to stun everybody in the playoffs, and like beat the powerhouse AL champion team. The '86 team is one of the most exciting and fun and just legendary sort of teams. I mean, dysfunctional in some ways, just chock full of guys that were unique and brought a lot to the table. And then, it's like I grew up watching those late 90s teams with just the incredible, like, middle of the order. You got Piazza and Olerud hitting back to back. You have Edgardo Alfonso and a lot of these role player type guys who maybe weren't superstars filling in the gaps, and just fun teams to watch. And so, the hope is that one of the New York teams is playing well. And right now we don't get to enjoy either of those the way things are going.
But, well, I know on George and my aspect, '86 never happened. So
Yeah.
well, go ahead.
To that point, I just want to say that if you have followed me on Twitter for a while, I do a lot of Bill Buckner posts where I talk about how unfairly he is remembered for one play. And, a lot of people, that's the only thing they can think of. But the guy won a batting title. He hit almost 500 doubles. He had a ton of hits. He never struck out. I mean, talk about just insane bat to ball skills. For a long time, he struck out in the low 400s in 22 years in the big leagues total, 400 times total. He struck out like 13 times the year he won the batting title. And when you compare that to, there are guys with 120 strikeouts in the first half this year. I just don't think enough people give Bill Buckner the credit that he deserved as a hitter, as a baseball player, what he was able to, just show up and do his job, even as his body was like betraying him and falling apart. Right. So I'm very pro Bill Buckner and very conscious of the fact that so many folks remember the moment that you guys don't want to remember. So I'm there advocating for him, even as a Met fan.
No, he was such a dangerous hitter to come to the plate, in any situation. And, he came when he got to the bat, he meant business, and he'd drive the ball any place. And as you said, his legs were giving out from under him, but he didn't let that stop him. He was really, really a special hitter. And you're right. It's too bad he's remembered for that one play. And, when the Red Sox won the World Series in 2004, when they gave out the rings, he got a standing ovation when they did that. I think winning cures everything. All was forgiven. I mean, that was good for him because he was such a good guy to boot. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I was only 4 years old, like maybe 3 or 4 years old in '86. But doing my history and stuff like that, a lot of people sit there and say Buckner shouldn't even been out there. I can't remember the backup first baseman's name.
Dave Stapleton.
His defense should have been out there, but they were all ready for the big win. They wanted him out there, and I'm like, man, would they have done it if it was David Ortiz? Would they have put David Ortiz at first base just to get him out there, for a championship celebration? No. So, you can't sit there and judge the guy. I always joke with Mets fans. I'm like, '86 never happened. Technically, I'm only 39 years old instead. I'm 40 years old instead of 41. But I sit there and I love Gaetti. How you sit there and you're pro him because you look at what he did in his career, not what he didn't do in that one moment.
Absolutely. I think he had over 2,700 hits. I mean, guy had a career. And the thing is, if you put Stapleton out there, even if he boots the ball and the Red Sox still lose, maybe Bill Buckner's in the Hall of Fame or something. You know what I mean? Like the whole perception of his body of work would be so different if he wasn't the guy that let that ball go through his legs.
Yeah.
Right.
I know growing up, I was a huge fan of the Mets infield. Like you said, Piazza, Olerud, Ventura, playing third. Where you guys, I don't know, is that record still stand? The least amount of errors given up by an infield in a season?
99, yep.
That's just amazing.
Ray Ordonez at shortstop.
Yeah.
He was a magician, that guy.
Who was second for the Mets?
Fonzie.
Oh, okay, yeah. So like that, I love that. I love that Mets infield because I always, even with my kids, I talk about teamwork and that cohesive unit of an infield. They work together, and defense wins games. You see it in football, defense won a lot of games for them. with the least amount of errors in MLB history.
Absolutely.
So,
And I mean, Olerud at first base made everybody else look better. I think one of the things that is underappreciated about a good first baseman is the confidence that they give the other infielders to get rid of the ball quickly, to just let it rip, because if you get it close, he's going to pick it. He's going to make a good stretch. He's got the footwork. He's got the hands. There's no worse feeling for an infielder than being like, you stop the ball and you're like, if I don't throw a strike to this guy, like I'm going to get an error. And so I think Olerud is a very, I use the word underrated in my tweets all the time, right? Every day I post like an underrated player of the day. And man, Olerud is that in spades. He could hit, he could glove it. He actually played for the Red Sox very briefly.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was his final season in the big leagues. And fun fact, that was also his first career game in the minor leagues was that season on a rehab assignment. He had skipped the minors coming from college and did not play a single game in the minor leagues until his final year in professional baseball.
Yeah, and I remember Olerud, and this is what I love about a first baseman. If they know that the ball, and Olerud was great at this, wasn't going to make to him, he got his foot off the bag to make sure that ball didn't get by him. And we've seen that on the Red Sox this year with Casas, where he won't move. Like, he wants to try to stretch, and sometimes, okay, the guy might get to on the first base, but at least he's not on second. You got to know the presence, and Casas is still young. He has Turner over there helping him out, learning everything. But I remember Uke doing it a lot, You got to have the mind presence of get off the bag, get to the ball, make sure the runner doesn't get to second. And Olerud was amazing at that.
Yeah,
there's a lot that goes into it that, I really appreciate all those little things, because in high school, I moved from third to first, and I had never played first base in like little league or anything. And so, I had to like figure all this stuff out, and like you learn what to do and what not to do, and being in the right place all the time and keeping the ball in front of you. And like, a lot of guys, the tendency is if they're trying to get to a ball, they'll stretch early. And once your weight shifts and your weight is over your plant foot, you're toast if the ball tails or it's like not exactly where your mind expected it to be. And so having that sort of presence of mind to adjust to the situation and not react too early and, get off the bag if you're going to need to get off the bag, it just makes a huge difference, not just to that player, but to the entire infield.
Yeah. So, well, let's dive right into the starting rotation, the lineups we have going in for the Friday, Saturday, Sunday series. Friday, you guys got Senga going. We got Paxton going. Tell everybody about Senga, who hasn't been able to watch him, and about that amazing phantom pitch that he loves to throw.
So, if anybody's not aware of Senga, right, he's 30 years old. He's a rookie, not because he's new to pro ball, but because he came from Japan. And he's just been electric, and he leads the staff in almost every pitching category. I think he's worked out, really well, which has been huge because Scherzer and Verlander are the two highest paid pitchers in sports, right? They're making like over $43 million a year, each of them. And they have the pedigree. They've got the closet full of Cy Youngs. They've got all the accolades, the 300 strikeout seasons, the marquee guys, the name brands. And it's no secret that they're starting to look their age, right? And so to bring in Senga and have him, like a lot of these guys, you never know when somebody switches leagues. People like Ichiro worked out, obviously, right? But not everybody becomes like an MVP caliber guy. And so there's always this inherent unknown. some guys who mash in Japan come over and can't hit major league pitching. And so I think like the big takeaway is that Senga is a guy who came to Major League Baseball. It's not just competing, but is thriving and is really helping take the pressure off sort of the underperformance of the guys that were supposed to carry the bulk of the weight. I mean, I can't even tell you how shocked I am that here we are, it's July 18th. This is the team that the Mets have. This is the payroll that the Mets have. And they're like 43-50. If you told me this was going to be a sub 500 team, like, obviously, I never would have believed you. And, but I'm trying to see what is Senga 7-5, right? So
7-5, 3.20 ERA.
Yeah, so he is more than pulling his weight. And I just think, like, we just need the rest of the roster who is underperforming to even come back to, like, baseline. And then you're going to find yourself with just so much depth, both offensively and pitching. Like, the talent is there. The pieces are assembled. And it's not like one or two guys are underperforming. It's like pretty much everybody is underperforming, not just the expectations, but even their career norms. They're all unusually not having their normal year. And I just think Senga is like huge breath of fresh air amidst this massive underperformance that's pretty much roster wide.
Yeah, Japanese players are something that you have to take a chance on pretty much. Pitching wise, I was always, ever since we signed Daisuke, I was always worried because I'm like, are we going to get another Daisuke, or is this one actually going to pan out? So that was always my worry. Senga definitely is worth his weight in gold. Just like for us, when we have Masa, everyone's like, oh, we overpaid. Man, I feel bad for the guy. I think we underpaid for him. You know what I mean? It's still his, just like Senga, it's his rookie season. Masa just turned 30 also. Mm-hmm. But man, they're showing their maturity for their teams and leading their teams by example. So
both of those guys, they are pros. Like, they know how to carry themselves. They know how to play the game. They're not like distractions. They're there to work and get it done. And I mean, they're both having pretty good years, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So George, Senga's going against Paxton, who just came off his worst outing, of the season. And of course, people on Twitter were going to throw him to the wolves after one bad outing. Right. But he's 5-2 with 3.51 ERA. Yeah. Let's talk about him, George.
The bad outing against the Cubs aside, Paxton has been amazing for the Red Sox. He didn't break camp with them. He was still rehabbing. He hadn't thrown a pitch in 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And the best part is we're paying him $4 million. Okay. He comes along, and his first outing, he looks like he had never even skipped a beat. He's up throwing 97. He looks like he did in Seattle. He has been a very good constant for this staff. It's a pity you're not going to get to see Brian Bayo this time around because he is something special. I don't know if you had a chance to see him. He'll remind you of Pedro Martinez in a lot of different ways, and he is maturing in front of our eyes, and he's becoming the ace of the staff. That said, because Paxton not a lot was expected of him out of the thing. Most people didn't think he was even going to come up. It was like, yeah, maybe, so what? Maybe he'll throw 6 innings every once in a while. But he's been a rock. Now he's come up, and he's actually helped Paxton. I'm sorry, helped Bayo. And when we lost Sale, having James Paxton on the roster was probably the best thing that could have happened. He's firing the ball at will, not afraid to make contact. We'll strike you out, okay? And just he's he's got that drive in him again. He goes to the mound, ready to take it over. After the game in Chicago, he owned it. He said, "Look, I stunk. You're gonna have a bad night. This is it for me. Yeah, I was bad. Okay, didn't shy away from it. That's what you want. That sends a clear message to the other pitchers on the staff. Look, own your performance. Just get out there and do your job. And if you look at a young guy like Bayo, there's a way to how to carry yourself as well. But yeah, he's been an extremely bright spot for us when we needed it most.
Yeah. Game 2, you guys got Scherzer going, and we've got, well, hopefully we've got the same Cutter Crawford going. What's up with Scherzer this year? He doesn't seem to be the same flamethrower that in years past.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is he's 38, and like I said, he and Verlander are just some of the most accomplished pitchers that I think the game has ever seen. I think they're both certainly going to wind up in Cooperstown. But at some point, like Father Time is undefeated, right? The thing about Mad Max is that he is such a competitor. He's such a professional. And even as your stuff deteriorates, like the ferocity doesn't. And I mean, he's not the flamethrower of years past, but he's 8-3. I think he's got like the second most innings pitched on the team. He's got the second most strikeouts on the team. And, like he's not giving you MVP, like Cy Young level kind of Scherzer, but I mean, he's arguably the best pitcher on the team. He and Senga are probably the top 2. Verlander missed a few starts, right? So he doesn't have the same kind of volume, but he's right in there with them sort of like rate-wise. Those 3 guys have to put this, these starts on their shoulders and squarely keep the Mets in it and give them an opportunity to win. That's all you can do. Like they know what their job is that they need to do. I don't think anybody's expecting Scherzer to like strike out 300 guys, right? Those days are in the past. It's about giving your bats an opportunity to stay in it and to win it. And I think he's always going to have the temperament and the personality, and he wants the ball. And he, like George was saying, I mean, Max is a guy that owns his performance. I don't think he makes excuses. He's a tough competitor. And it just, unfortunately, you can't bank on the stuff being there the way you used to. Every single day you knew he was going to have it. Now when he has it, he can look vintage. It's just that's not every start anymore.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. What do you think was the Mets ownership? You guys lost Syndergaard. Yeah, you guys let DeGrom go. Why not go younger? And why do you think they went and paid all that money for the 2 veteran pitchers that are a little older, a little bit possible injury prone?
Well, I will say that sort of dodged a bullet with the other guys, right? Syndergaard and DeGrom are both also injury prone. DeGrom got paid and he's 30 innings in to his contract, and now he's going to have Tommy John. He may not pitch till he's 37 years old. I hear people talk about how DeGrom maybe is a Hall of Famer, but he's got 84 wins in his career exclusively as a starting pitcher, right? 100% of his appearances have been in starts. He's got 84 wins, and he's been in the league for a decade. So, he obviously was not going to give the Mets the volume of work or the innings, but was going to command a mega salary in excess of $40 million a year or whatever, they're paying these other guys anyway. And so I think that was a calculated risk that the team took, letting him walk, saying, we're just not going to absorb the risk that he has elbow problems. And 30 innings into his Rangers contract, he's done probably for the next, season and a half. Now, obviously with like the new ownership, they wanted to convey that they're not afraid to spend. They're not afraid to bring in big names. They're not afraid to bring in marquee guys. I think, Houston era Verlander, even post Tommy John Verlander, as a 39-year-old, he was back. He was all the way back. And, to rehab from Tommy John at 39 and come back and have a Cy Young season, it says a lot about sort of like his discipline, his preparation, his approach. And, some of that is like, wouldn't you love to have that in your clubhouse? Wouldn't you love to have a pitching staff that can look up to Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, who have how many Cy Youngs between the two of them? Like, could you imagine the wisdom that's there to glean about the art of pitching? And then the hope that they can still do it at a high level is almost like a bonus. Like, yeah, you want them to go out there and win games, but you also want them to lead by example, and you also want all of the intangibles and everything else that goes on behind the scenes in the clubhouse with the pitching staff, with these guys who have stuff and need to know how to harness it. Guys who are young and need to know how to pace themselves, take care of themselves, prepare to pitch, approach different hitters. I think there's so much more value to those two guys than the number of innings they give you or the number of hitters they strike out. And, with like the financial resources that Steve Cohen has, it was such an exciting way to see these pieces come together. Two of the great pitchers of their generation on the same staff. I mean, I think everybody just had visions of those guys at the front of the rotation winning 20 games apiece and the Mets being way above 500 at this point in the season, not 43 and 50. It's like, it's unbelievable. It's like worse than depressing because it shouldn't be this way. The talent is just off the charts.
Yeah, definitely. George, Cutter Crawford coming off an amazing performance, 6 shutout innings.
Yeah. For us, Crawford has been a little up and down. He pitched brilliantly on Sunday, as Ritt said, 6 shutout innings. He was the number 5 guy when the season opened. Had a little trouble getting out of the third or the fourth inning. Went back in the bullpen. Was along with Winkowski for us. That was a nice problem to have because they were both just team killers for the opposing team in long relief. There was a good 2-headed monster there. Since he's come back in the rotation, and for right now we only have 3 starting pitchers. Okay, he has each start he's gained a little bit more confidence. 6 innings is the longest he's gone out this year. And he pitched out of trouble. Before we get into trouble, he might get in, he might not get out. He pitched out of trouble in the early innings, and he just fed off of that. And, he may have found himself. And right now, the team needs that because, we are shy on starting pitching. But, he's not afraid. He's got a four-seamer that rides up in the zone and can, cause people to chase. He's not gonna blow you away, but he's got enough stuff that moves that he can do it. And I think if he's learned to get past the 4th inning now, he's gonna that'll be good news because then your bullpen doesn't get chewed up. But he's been a little bit of up and down, but right now he's trending up. And this weekend it was a very nice thing to see.
Yeah, I was really, really happy with what Cutter Crawford was able to do this past Sunday. I want to go to the game 3 now. Because game 3, you guys got Carrasco.
Carrasco, yeah.
And then we've got potentially, which I hope it continues to go the way it does. Bernardino is going to open up for us, hopefully. And then we get an awesome Nick Pivetta coming in to take over after him. Tell us a little bit about Carrasco, because he's kind of another guy that's been there for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, he's another veteran presence. He's 36. He was kind of at the height of his powers with Cleveland. He led the majors in wins in 2017. He had 18 wins. You know, he had some like health problems earlier in his career that he's come back from and been an effective pitcher. You know, this year his ERA is over 5. He's you know, missed some starts. He's really not a like a strikeout guy. He's never been a huge strikeout guy, but I mean, he had multiple seasons of 200 plus strikeouts and a handful with, you know, more than a K per inning. Now he's got 43 Ks in 61 innings, so much more of like a pitching to contact kind of approach. And you know, it's like the other guys. He's older, but I don't think he has sort of the power that he can summon the way, like, at times Verlander still, you know, can blow it by you. So I think you're looking at probably like 5 innings and just hoping that you put up some runs. But again, he's a guy who's worth more than the stats on paper, because he's been there, he's overcome a lot of adversity, and just having these guys around to mentor younger pitchers, I think, is invaluable. And the hope is that if they can't be lights out in the short term, they can really position a young staff to be successful in the long term. And so, yes, they're very expensive, these veteran pitchers, but the hope is that over the next few years, it really turns into their influence manifests in other ways.
Yeah, that is one thing that I see on our, you know, squad. We have Chris Sale, Paxton, and, you know, of course, we always have Pedro Martinez. They're willing to mentor certain people. They're helping out Cutter Crawford, you know, Whitlock, Houck, Winkowski, like Bayo. It's like that is, you know, worth a lot when you get people to sit there that are able to sit there and show, not only just tell you, but show you how to act as a major league pitcher and how to get out of things. That is something that, you know, all organizations should be able to get. George, you want to sit there and take a crack and tell everybody how amazing Bernardino's been looking?
Another guy that Chaim Bloom brought in has bounced around a little bit. They've worked with him. He's been effective. I mean, he's done the opener role, 2 or 3 times now. Mm-hmm. Done 2 innings, does what you want to do, doesn't get down. Last night he throws 2 shutout innings. It's the openers. The Tampa Bay piloted that and, you know, made it something success. Made a success out of it. Right now, as I said, we really have 3 starters. So last night they brought Pivetta in the 3rd. I mean, you know, he 6 innings, 13 strikeouts. I mean, you can't ask anything more of that guy. I mean, he was a starter for us earlier in the season, griped a little bit about going to the pen, but boy, the results coming out of the pen have been spectacular. You know, he's dropped his ERA as a starter from 6-something, and now he's down in the about 4.7. You know, that's pretty good. And you know, I think if you took him aside and, you know, you didn't have a camera on him, he'd probably say, "Yeah, okay," you know. But he's got pride. He wants to be a starter. But boy, you can ask for much more than that. You know, they've got a bunch of guys that can go long. You know, Winkowski can give you that. He was the long guy in the beginning. They've got Brandon Walters just come up from Worcester, who can give that to you as well. Chris Murphy, who will probably be the first guy out of the pen tonight. You know, coming out after the opener. So, you know, for the Red Sox, they do have the ability to mix and match in a bullpen game. The problem is that we've got 2 openings in the rotation that we have to cover this for. So the need for a starting pitcher is huge for us. How long can we do the balancing act? Who knows? But if we get any kind of performance like we can, don't just count the bullpen, I guess is my point. And then in the back end, we're in pretty good shape with Martin and Jansen. I'm very extremely confident in those two. So.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy this series with the starting pitcher matchups, because it's kind of like they're balanced out on paper really well, and they kind of like evenly match up against each other. So let's switch our thoughts over here. Let's go to the lineup. Gaetti, let's talk about the Mets lineup a little bit. I'll let you take over from here.
Yeah. So the theme has sort of been underachievement, right? Not just with, maybe what you expected out of a $44 million a year starting pitcher, but this lineup is so phenomenally talented and has so many amazing pieces. Like, everybody knows that Pete Alonso is a premier power hitter, not just because he's won a couple of home run derbies, but last year he tied Aaron Judge for the major league lead in RBI. He's an old school cleanup guy. He's not going to hit 300 like Judge, but he's going to put the ball in play. He's going to drive in a lot of runs. He's going to hit a ton of homers. I think he was like the fastest player to 150 career homers or something like that. But he's hitting 207 this year. There's a big difference between not hitting 300. He's like a, career 260, 270 kind of guy. He's hitting 207 this year. He's got a 306 OBP. And yes, he leads the team in home runs and ribbies by a mile, but he's got to be more productive and be a more complete hitter. Jeff McNeil is a guy who has won a batting title. And like we talked about with Bill Buckner before, Jeff McNeil is one of these scrappy guys with bat-to-ball skills. If the ball is there, he can hit it. But this year, he hasn't been doing it. He's hitting 248. His OPS is in the 600s. He's never been a power guy, but that's fine when he's hitting line drives from line to line, using the whole field and hitting 326, right? Mm-hmm. So you can't have that same kind of lack of power and be a 248 hitter. You can't. Francisco Lindor is really one of the most well-rounded offensive players in the lineup, and he's hitting 232 this season. He's going to hit a lot of home runs for a shortstop. He's going to drive in a lot of runs for a shortstop. He's going to wind up with 20-plus stolen bases. He's a switch hitter. He's a veteran. He brings so much to the lineup. But he's a guy that could be having an MVP type season, because he's an MVP type talent, offensively, defensively, personality wise. I don't know anybody that doesn't like Lindor. He's just a lovable guy. And, Brandon Nimmo, he got a big contract in the offseason. They paid him a lot of money for Brandon Nimmo. And, his big thing is he works great at bats. I think he works really, really well at the top of the lineup. He still has a pretty decent OBP. It's at 359 this season, but he's a guy that could be like a 400 OBP guy. And it's just, you hate to see so many pieces, just about every spot in the lineup, kind of performing at a step below what you hope to expect. And I personally have always taken a little bit of I've looked sideways at giving Daniel Vogelbach a roster spot on a Major League Baseball team, because he is so one-dimensional. He cannot play the field. He has not played the field in years. He cannot run. And, people say, well, like, his OPS is worth it, whatever. His OPS is 679 this year. He takes a lot of pitches. He famously has like one of the lowest swing rates in baseball. He's extremely selective. He leaves the bat on his shoulder an awful lot. And what that leads to is some really frustrating called strikeouts. And yeah, every once in a while he'll get into one and hit it 400 feet. But that's the only aspect of his game really is like the homers and the walks. He's one of these 3 true outcome guys who can't even give you an inning on defense. And with roster spots just constantly at a premium, because, sometimes you just need to shake things up and give somebody a day off. Sometimes your bullpens get really taxed. Every roster spot matters. And the fact that, you have a guy like Vogelbach, maybe, you pinch hit him late in the game, he walks, best case scenario, and then you've got to run for him if it's a close game. And, it's just, I've had so many questions about that. That's the biggest piece of like the roster construction that I've never gotten a satisfactory answer about. But as for all the, the guys that are the big pieces, every single one of them could stand to play closer to their abilities and their career norms.
Yeah, surprisingly, Tommy Pham is your leading batting average at 275.
Insane, yeah.
And no one, like the roster that was constructed, Canna, Lindor, Sterling Marte. I used to, anytime when I played in a fantasy baseball league and I needed average, I always drafted McNeil. Always. Like it's just, I thought we were underperforming in the beginning of the year, but now it's after All-Star break and you guys are still underperforming.
And it's the highest payroll in baseball. Exactly.
So, George, you want to sit there and go down our lineup?
Sure. It's been of late, there's been a little jockeying and some changes from time to time. For a long time, Verdugo was the leadoff hitter. Now we've got Jaron Duran doing leadoff duties when Doogie isn't doing it. Right now, the offense is clicking and hitting. If you go around, I'll take the infield first. Tristan Casas, our number 1 prospect from last year, comes up. Big things were expected of him. He's been very slow coming out of the box. Yeah, he's got 12 bombs now. He did 3 straight games of hitting bombs in Chicago. He's been a little bit more aggressive, but we need to see more of it. He in the beginning of the year, you go, what was the matter with that pitch? You still get a little bit of that, but the aggression is starting to pick up a little. Ritt and I touched a little bit on his defense. He doesn't get off the bag. It was like the bag is made out of steel and his foot's a magnet. He just won't move. Okay. And it drives me crazy, because your first baseman, your job is to stop the ball. If it's not going to get in your glove, stop it before it ends up in the stands or the dugout or someplace where a fast runner can be on second or worse, third. The Red Sox counter to that is that Justin Turner has been playing a lot of first base. The man, you can't ask much more of this. He's hitting like 290. He's hitting home runs. He's driving runs in. He's that veteran guy that you kind of forget about, but he just goes up there and hits and does his job. And you put him in the field, he's not going to embarrass you. And he's got that presence about him, and he's helped the younger players. Second base for us has been kind of a little bit of a mixed bag due to injury. Christian Arroyo's currently holding it down. Now he's starting to hit again. Decent hitter. Okay defensively. He'll put him in 7-8 spot and the lineup, he'll be fine. Rafael Devers, he got paid. His average is starting to climb up now, and he's hitting he's hitting home runs and driving in runs. Got a little bit of a calf thing going on, so I didn't see the lineup for tonight. But is he in or out?
Yeah, he's in.
He's in.
Christian Arroyo started second base for the last game of the A's series, and Chang is at shortstop.
Is he? Okay. I hadn't seen. Before we went on, I didn't take a look at the roster for tonight's start. Shortstop, revolving door. We can talk about that a little bit. Kike Hernandez has held it down. Yu Chang is now the shortstop until Trevor Story comes back. Our catching situation, Connor Wong has now caught like 24 or 25 consecutive games. He's a difference maker behind the plate in terms of the running game. Okay. You run on him, you're probably going to get thrown out. Okay. And last night he went 3 for 5. And, he can hit, but, he's a darn good defensive catcher, and he's now your everyday defensive catcher, starting catcher. But he can hit a little bit, and he's a good defensive player. Outfield. You talked about, for you, Senga. For us, Yoshida has been just, nobody expected this. Okay. Hitting over 300, 11 home runs, driving in, he's got 50 runs batted in. He just works the count. He had a little trouble adjusting at first, found something, opened up his swing a little bit, and he's just been popping the ball all over the place. And his defense is not as bad as advertised. Right now, I'd say, he's not technically, he's not a rookie because he's, just turned 29, 30, much like Senga. But, he's rookie of the year based upon, major league service time. He's been enlightening. If you had to go sign him today, he's certainly worth the $15 million a year you're paying for him. In center field, we've got Duran, Speed Demon. They hit it again last night. Stretch a single into a double. Okay, you don't pick up the ball quickly on him. He's like the road runner. He will be on second base, and heaven forbid you hit one in the gap and don't do it. He's standing on third. Okay, and he's come so far because last year he just had a horrible year. Dustin Pedroia worked with him a little bit in the offseason and talked to him and said, "Look, you need to do this," and it's like the switch went on. Okay, and when he came back up in June and late May, early June, he's been on fire, and just he's been at times the spark plug this roster needs. Verdugo, Core challenged in the beginning of the year to be better. He has. It's in a little bit of a slump right now, but but he's playing good defense, something he wasn't doing before. He's hustling all the time. I think that's Core just jabbing at him and saying, "You're going to do this." He's hitting well. They've got Adam Duvall. He was on fire when he got hurt 2 weeks into the season and broke his wrist in Detroit. That was too bad because, man, he was killing the baseball. He's coming back. He's just starting to catch fire again. And that's good because this is a left-heavy lineup. So to have a good, strong right-handed stick in addition to Turner is something this lineup needs desperately. And then we have the lefty killer in Rob Refsnyder. The man just kills left-handed pitching. And he'll be sitting on the bench for 3 days. A bunch of righties going. He'll occasionally get in there. Left-handed comes up and he's like, he doesn't miss a beat. He'll go, 2 for 4, 2 for 5, and then play a very solid defensive outfield, no matter what spot you put him in. Our lineup is hit, as I said earlier, our lineup's hitting now. That wasn't always the case. We would have decent pitching, but we'd struggle hitting. And the home run balls reappeared, but what's happening is what we've called recently death by 1,000 cuts. Okay? Single here, walk, double, single, on base, runners are moving along, okay? Keep the line moving kind of thing. And that's been the difference, I think, in the last 2 to 3 weeks. Nobody's waiting around for the long ball. Everybody's just out there. We're going to get in a base. We're going to see what happens. Now, recently the long balls reappeared, but they're not waiting on it, and they're just the line's moving, and the traffic on the base paths is consistent now. So it's a very dangerous offense right now to come up against because they'll find a million ways to beat you. In terms of speed, something you never thought you'd see a Red Sox team have, but they've got it. And they're a little dangerous club right now.
Either you or George or Gaetti, do you guys know if Masa has faced Senga, and what his numbers are in Japan at all?
I don't know, but that's a great question. That would be fun to see.
You got to believe he did, though.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit there and look that up. Gaetti, we're gonna switch back to the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
I know bullpen's a little touchy with you because of the WBC and took down your closer.
Yeah.
But let's talk your bullpen and how they reconstructed it to what it is today.
So, I mean, talk about a freak accident in the WBC, celebrating a win, and Diaz goes down with the injury. And, he's somebody that last year, I mean, he just had an unbelievable year, just completely lights out. And it was like we had turned a corner, because when he initially came over, after having been this elite closer in Seattle, I think Met fans were disappointed. His first season as a Met, he blew a couple of high-profile games, and for all the ones you lock down, you remember the ones that get blown, right? And so, but last year, I mean, I think he had an ERA like in the ones or something, just elite. And then suddenly he's lost for the season after signing that huge contract, right? I think the biggest contract for a relief pitcher ever in baseball history. And, you knew that was going to hurt, but the Mets have found a great closer who's a known quantity in David Robertson. He's 38 years old. He's been around. He was with the Yankees for a long time. He's closed for some other teams, the Cubs, the Phillies, the White Sox. He's a vet. He's in the league 15 years. He's had some arm surgeries that he's come back from. And like Verlander, here's a guy who comes back from elbow surgery in his late 30s. And he's reclaimed his form. He's got a 1.96 ERA this year, and he's still striking out well over a batter per inning. And he gives you that confidence in the back end of the bullpen that I think everybody feared was going to go out the window with the Diaz injury. It's so hard to replace an Edwin Diaz on the heels of the season he had last year, and after signing this mega contract, right? I think people just they're like, well, there goes the season. And then Robertson has just stepped up and been great. And then Ottavino is also, a late 30s known quantity, another veteran pitcher. It's a very old pitching staff. But, there's something to be said for these guys that have been around. I think mid-tier bullpen guys are, I think for most teams, they're going to be pretty fungible. They're going to be up and down. They're going to be hit and miss. But I think both of these teams, the Mets and the Red Sox, both have very, very solid back ends, veteran relievers who are used in high leverage situations. I mean, Kenley Jansen, right? He's one of the most accomplished closers in big league history at this point. The back end of both of these teams is going to be very solid. Those mid innings, we'll see.
Yeah, I can't find anywhere about Yoshida and Senga facing each other in Japan. I'm sitting there and trying to Google everything I can find, and I cannot sit there and find that they have ever faced each other.
Interesting.
So, unless Google's let me down for the first time ever. But that might be something to see. Like I haven't ever heard anybody talk about those two going head to head this season. So it's going to be something really, really great to see if that is the case. George, you want to sit there and I know you touched on our bullpen a little bit earlier. Just want to polish up it a little bit.
The bullpen was rebuilt. I mean, last year it was gasoline on a fire. There was nothing there. Bloom made it his priority. As you said, he went out and he signed Kenley Jansen as a closer. That's a real closer. He got Martin to come in to be the setup guy. Now this guy doesn't walk very many people. Okay, that's what you want for a setup guy, and he's done a couple of closing roles for us. Right now we've got 6 lefties in the bullpen, which seems like a lot, but right now, some of the short guys, it's been a mix and match scenario for us. A little bit of a revolving door. The big names out of the bullpen lately have been, Pivetta, Winkowski, who said Bernardino, Jakes, who's going to be the starter tonight. Good young kid. He's got some decent stuff that plays well. We've got Brandon Walter and Murphy. What they did was they loaded up Worcester with the AAA club with a lot of decent depth. Okay, and they've had to play on that a lot. So there's been the turnstile back and forth on a lot of the 1 and 2 inning guys has come out of Worcester, and it's worked sometimes and other times it hasn't. But for right now, I love the back end of our bullpen. We're due to get somebody back, John Shriver, who was terrific for us last year. That's coming back. But I like what they've been able to do. They've been able to mix it up a little bit. And as I said, when you're short 2 starters, we're doing it. Don't know how, but we're doing it. So
I'm sure Pivetta is a big part of that.
He is. Like I said before, he griped a lot when I'm a starting pitcher when he went down. But, he's been a pro. He's gone down there and just say, you throw me out there, I'm going to do my thing. He's obviously, trying to win his way back into the rotation. But, I give him credit for, swallowing his pride and just say, hey, I'm going to go out. This is my ball club. I got to go out and perform for them.
So Gaetti, do you have any top prospects that the Mets have that, the fans could see at some point this year?
I think we might see Mark Vientos again. He's somebody that's been, he's come up. You have to see what the right situation is to bring him back up, because the thing about prospects is I want them to be able to play every day. I think there's nothing more frustrating than you bring up a young guy that people are excited about and they just don't get a chance to get the reps and get involved and play a lot. So whether it's like an injury or a trade, there's got to be some way to make a spot for bringing up a prospect to be viable. I think Vientos is going to be great. Brett Beatty, who is, playing a lot of third base now for them, I actually was able to see last season at AA. And, it was neat. He got promoted, I think maybe like a week or two after I got to see him play. And, you want to see these guys be successful. And I know that a lot of times it takes the right opportunity to get them the reps and the consistency and get them ingrained, because nobody's going to get into a groove playing, starting twice a week right out of the gate when they're young. And I think, that's something that the Yankees have botched a little bit with some of the younger infielders that they've brought up. At one point, they had how many shortstops on the roster, right? Natural shortstops, Peraza and Cabrera and Volpe and all these, Torres and whoever else. And it's like they can't all play. And if they can't all play, they can't all be successful. So that's something that I've always tried to be sensitive to. But, I'm glad like Alvarez is getting regular reps. I'm glad Beatty is playing a lot. I would like to see maybe, move somebody and make it possible for Vientos to come up and be a piece of the offense on a regular basis.
Yeah. Earlier in the season, Tristan Casas was having a huge problem at the plate. He wasn't hitting the ball. He was being patient. He was getting those 13, 14 pitch at bats. But people were on Red Sox Twitter, and there's a reason why they're not in management. They're not in the clubhouse. We're telling to send him back down. But they don't understand, George has helped me talk to a few, DC and myself. When we're talking and interviewing these minor league players, there's something that, like, you're up in the majors and all of a sudden you get sent back down. That messes with your head. Like, then all of a sudden you're like, wait, what did I do wrong? I'm trying to figure things out. And now I got to go down, to AAA to figure it out. And sometimes you may never get that player back because of that situation. I'm so glad that they let him stay up there, find out, and work his way through, because once the middle of May came, all of a sudden Costa started figuring it out. He's doing a lot better. I think in the last 3 games last 3 games, the last 3 at bats, he had a home run because he pinch hit against the Cubs and hit a home run. Like he figured out, and he's able to hit where he wants to now. And that's something you don't get by sending them down to AAA. That's something you don't get to playing 2 days a week, like you said. You got to get those every day, and you got to figure it out on yourself. Last year, Jarren Duran couldn't figure it out. This year he figured it out. And what makes a great player, I've been saying this for a while now, is when you hit a slump, you figure it out to get back on the hot streak again. That's what makes a major league player.
It's a game of adjustments. And even if you stick in the big leagues and you don't get demoted, if you're only getting 4 at-bats in a week, you're not going to make those adjustments. I think just about every young player will struggle, will go through that first really rough patch. Mm-hmm. And it might be mechanics, it might be timing, it might be any number of things. But the only way it's going to work itself out is if, you give yourself the opportunity to work it out. The problem is that depending on the team and the construction of the team and how everything is going, how much leeway do they want to give you to work out your issues? And that's why I just think there's so much more than the numbers, right? It's the psychology of how does it make you feel if you get demoted? On the other hand, isn't there a way to convey that message where you're saying to the player, look, we want to give you the reps and the opportunity to work it out. And that's going to happen in Scranton because you can just, lead off every day, get, 5 at-bats a game, and then be back here in a couple weeks. There's a way to do it. And I think that's why just the field staff and the front office have to be on the same page about how they approach players and development and handling these young players. Because the last thing you want is for a hyper talented prospect that you've sunk a lot of money into and that you think has a future with the team to mishandle them in a way that's to their detriment and to your own.
Yeah, definitely. That for a Red Sox standpoint, that'd be like Marcelo Meyer coming up, playing shortstop. He's hitting 128, and we're like, we're gonna send you back down. Wait, what? You're not gonna work with them? That's what I like about the Red Sox have those veterans. They had Justin Turner that was able to help Tristan Casas defensively and get his mind back into the game. Where if you don't have that veteran leadership, you might sit there and ruin a prospect that way. So right. I personally think that could be what Bobby Dahlbeck in AAA right now. His mind's where he's not good enough to play in Fenway Park because the fans, pretty much booted him because of them bringing him up, bringing him down, bringing him up, bringing him down. A change of scenery might be needed for Bobby Dahlbeck.
Absolutely.
So, well, Gaetti or not Gaetti, this is the toughest question that we're going to ask you all day today. What do you think the series is going to turn out?
I think the Mets are going to take the first 2.
Oh, okay.
We'll see. George has me intimidated with his bullpen game.
Good. Now if they can just come through, we'll be all set.
Yeah.
I think the Sox can take 2 out of 3. It's not going to be easy. Unlike the Cubs game, the Cubs series, I'm not going to go pick the games I think that they can win, but I think they can definitely take 2 out of 3. I think that they may prey upon the fact that Scherzer is getting older, and that this may not be one of his better games. And if they continue to, dink and dunk and, get timely hitting and, put one on the seats every now and then, I think, that'll be the key to their victories in New York. The other downside is that they're coming off, they just shot out to the West Coast for 3 games and then they're heading back east again. So whether or not that plays into it is another story. So, but I think the Sox can take 2 out of 3.
George, I'm going to go with you in this one. I was bouncing back and forth between a 1-2 and a 2-1, but I really think I think we can continue the bats. These are part of the series that we actually need to keep going into the trade deadline for us to hopefully be buyers. So I can't sit there and I can't wait. And DC just texted me. Well, we won't be seeing Trevor Story in AAA. He will be starting in AA on Friday. So I'm a little disappointed.
Man.
I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping to get an interview with Trevor Story, but he's going to AA. George,
he's killing me. He's killing me. I'm going to tomorrow night's game. That would have been great if I got to see him in a rehab. I mean, I've seen Poppy in a rehab there. I've seen Sale a couple of times. It's like, oh man, Friday now.
Well, George, looks like you're going to a Friday or Saturday game, buddy.
Could be. The weather's been the big thing up here lately. We've had way too much rain.
Do you guys know how Houck is doing?
He had the surgery. He's due to start a rehab probably in 2 to 3 weeks, isn't it, Rich? Sometime in August.
Yeah,
they're being very, very cautious with him.
Yeah, I was watching the game. I was watching the game when he got hurt, and you hate to see that happen. He was having the start of the year, and just one of those unfortunate things. And I think fans of every team are hoping that he's makes it all the way back.
He's a tough guy to begin with. He's just head down and go. And we've had this is the second time this year that one of our guys has gotten hit in the head. We did Houck a couple of weeks ago, and spring training, Justin Turner took one in the mouth. So it's a little too close for comfort for all of us. If you've seen enough baseball, you've seen some really bad things happen. But I mean, they're doing the right thing. A lot of it's going to be mental. Although with Houck, I tend to think that he's got the mental makeup that he's just going to go, I want to get back in the game. So, but I'm sure they're going to be careful with that.
Yeah. So, Not Gaetti, thanks for coming on. Please tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, how they can converse with you with the Mets and Yankees. So, the floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Not Gaetti. I also have a Redbubble store where I have all kinds of merch with my weird Not Gaetti sayings. Some of it is anti-analytics and poking fun at the nerds that run the front offices these days. It's all very fun and tongue-in-cheek. And, I tweet about a lot of underrated ball players from all teams, a lot about the great Yankee and Mets players of the past. And, I'm always on Twitter. Feel free to reach out anytime. I'd love to talk ball.
Hey, thanks for coming on. And we're going to see you for our trade deadline show coming up in 2 Sundays. Am I right?
Yep, I'm going to try to be there. I think it'll be, could be a really dramatic day. There's a lot of teams that are going to be buyers, a lot of teams that are going to be sellers.
Yeah. So, George, can we get a preview of your next article? Any ideas you're throwing out there?
Yeah, we're actually working on one today, talking about why this team should be something that everybody loves, and something about the grit and ability to bounce back. So it's about halfway written. It's probably come out tomorrow, and a certain player that we both idolize for his toughness will be the main character in the story.
Oh, man. Throw some dirt on it.
You got it. That's one and the same.
So, okay, guys. For myself, for George, for Not Gaetti, thanks for tuning in and checking out the preview for the Mets Red Sox series. And check us out next time on the Pesky Podcast.